mute your mic, that would be great. That will help us. That way we'll all be able to hear the presentation.
Oh, thank you.
So excited to see each and every one of you.
Why am I not sure?
Sorry for getting a late start here. Is anyone on the call?
You'd be surprised.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And we have some friends still joining us, so we're just going to get everybody in and settled.
Okay.
We're going to have so much fun. Thank you all for being part of this program.
Babe,
Yeah.
I forgot. What's Greta's mate's name? What's his name?
Noah.
Noah. Yeah, Noah. Sorry.
I'm here from random access memory, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Marianne, we wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah,
Believe it.
honestly.
You just did a full day of PR for Irresistible, literally from 11 to 4 p.m. every 4 minutes. Someone came in, slated, and said the exact same thing.
Okay, so
Wow.
Let me tell you, we cannot believe that Irresistible is opening tomorrow. And here you both are at the Duxbury Senior Center. That's that says how much you love the Duxbury Senior Center.
Well, I do. And you guys are great. I love
Thank
being.
you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. We have the waiting room will continue to happen, and we're going to get our program started. All right. My name is Andrea Brandeis, and I want to welcome you to this intergenerational community, Little Women Booked for Lunch. I work at the Senior Center. I'm a part-time program coordinator, and COVID cannot keep us away. Zoom is our new Ellison Center, and we are really excited for today's program. We are all about community, and we are all about being together. Today, we have 2 movie stars, a food stylist, and an Academy Award-winning costume design team member, along with several community partners. And yes, this is the Duxbury Senior Center. It's hard to believe. I'm going to express my gratitude to our community partners, but at first I'm going to give you a little bit of the backstory. Sue Bradford, Executive Director of the Duxbury Student Union, and I were having a cup of tea pre-COVID together, catching up and sharing ideas. Sue showed me the book, Little Women, the official movie guide, and told me all about Christine Tobin, the food stylist, and thought it would be great if we did a program in Duxbury. Well, here we are. Thank you, Sue. The Community Garden Club of Duxbury has underwritten this program. We are beyond grateful to them for all of us. We love partnering with the Garden Club. They are all about community joy and beauty. They are generous with their time, talent, and for Little Women, their funds. Thank you, Laura Smith, for the role of being the community liaison. You make it all happen. The Duxbury Free Library and the Duxbury Independent Booksellers Booked are our partners for Booked for Lunch programs. We call ourselves the Literary Holy Trinity. We love our partnership. Thank you to Suzanne Gunnarsson for all of your fantastic social posts about the history of Little Women and more promoting this event. Suzanne, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Suzanne. I'm one of the librarians at the Duxbury Free Library, and we're always so thrilled that the Senior Center lets us be part of these Booked for Lunch get-togethers. I thought a lot lately about this time of the pandemic, and I miss seeing my coworkers because we like to talk about books and we like to talk about stories. So this Book for Lunch is really fulfilling a deep need in me that I don't get so much lately. And I think Little Women in particular is such a good one because it's been around for 150 years and so many of us have read it at different times in our lives and felt different ways about the characters, and that we are probably all strangers, but we could all have a conversation that has to do with this story and our relationship to it, which I think is really powerful. really great, and we're happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, we are grateful. I'd like to also introduce Jane Robbins from Booked. Jane?
Hi guys, how are you? Just wanted to say hi and let you know, Andrea showed you the book, but I do have some copies of the book if anyone would like to buy it. I put on the chat, I have a website now where you can go on, or you can just email me at booked.dux@gmail.com, but it's on the chat format. If you guys want to go on to that, everyone knows how to do that. You can read the information there. And if you have any questions, you can give me a call, or you can reach me through Andrea and Brooke through the Senior Center. My phone number is 617-513-6622. So if you buy a book today, I'll be able to deliver it in Duxbury for you. It might take a couple days to get it, but we are looking forward to hearing about everything about this book because it is a beautiful book. So thank you, Andrea. Thank you, everyone that's joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jane. And we love shopping local. We absolutely do. So at the 11th hour, I reached out to Carolyn Ravenscroft from the Duxbury Rural Hills Historical Society, asking if they would join the program to share information and stories about the Alcott's family ties to Duxbury, the abolition, and more. Carolyn did not hesitate. We're thrilled she's part of the program today. Thank you to Farfar's and the Foodsmith for delighting us with delicious Little Women peppermint ice cream and sugar and cinnamon apple bread that is available through their websites. We will also post that in the chat room for you. I want to thank my colleague, Brooke McDonough, for her time and talent in getting the Little Women program out into our community. This program has been seen on all social platforms via email, PAC TV, and print. We are partners in our Booked for Lunch, and on behalf of all of us, we are grateful to Brooke for the gift of Marianne Leone and Chris Cooper. We truly are. Thank you, Brooke. And Marianne, we love you. Thank you so much. You make it all happen. You are a force.
Thanks.
There are so many local and Duxbury connections to the making of this film, and it will all unfold in this program. We're going to begin our conversations, followed by a Q&A, and then head into a cooking demonstration with Christine. Christine is up in Boston. I want to give you a little bit of information about Little Women. It was originally published in 2 volumes in 1868 as Little Women and 1869 as Good Wives. These 2 volumes were issued in 1880 as a single volume, Little Women. This coming of age story has been made into 5 films, 1918, 1933, 1949, 1994, where it was produced with Sony, and the revenues were 50.1 million. In 2019 with Sony at 206 million.
Wow.
Today we are so fortunate to have this Little Women program together, and we're going to start our interview with Chris Cooper. Welcome, Chris Cooper, Mr. Laurence.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. You played the character of Mr. Laurence in the film. Can you tell us about your character and describe your experience of playing Mr. Laurence?
Yeah, Mr. Laurence is the owner and has granted a place for the girls to stay. Let's see, he's the grandfather to Laurie, played by Timothy Chalamet. And it's a lovely, lovely, I dare say it's a nice little role, and the scenes are spread out throughout the film very equally, and real advantage to, like, folks in LA, you just get in the car and drive to work as an actor. It was pretty nice and convenient, and pretty enjoyable, just very enjoyable.
Wow. Why did you take the role of Mr. Laurence in the film Little Women?
Well, Marianne let me know very clearly that was one of the first books that she read, and I'd have never heard the end of it if I'd not taken the role. No, for so many reasons. It's a classic, my gosh, and you're not gonna pass up the opportunity of working on. It's one of these, like, it's like it's like Wuthering Heights or something. For some reason, this book is done every 10 or 12 years. And to have the opportunity of being a part of this cast and crew, which was probably my greatest joy, was watching these young actors day to day and how prepared they were, and their talents are remarkable. I wish I had that much confidence when I was their age, but it was a treat to work with them. And I did know Greta from previous work. Gosh, I think that's maybe how she remembered me, to maybe cast me in the role of Mr. Laurence. But complete joy.
Wow, that's fantastic. How did you prepare for the role? What research did you have to do to become Mr. Laurence?
I did something that it's nothing new, but I just decided to do it. Marianne had a copy, her original copy, I think. And then I also went to the library and got an audio version of the reading. So I listened to the audio and I read along at the same time. Was that an advantage or any help? I don't know. It was just something I felt like doing. And, as far as deep research, I had done enough research on Civil War. Great fan of Geraldine Brooks. I had read her book, March, which is a look at the father who has left the family and is tending to the wounded in the soldiers in, I believe, DC. And that book I had read a handful of years ago for a completely different role, but it served me very, very well for that character, and it also gave me a good feel for this period.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's a great way to do it. To lean in and read the books. I'm going to hold up the picture of you. You have your own chapter in this book, which is kind of cool. Here it is.
Very cool. Sorry, I'm completely ignorant that this book is out there. I was so amazed to see this. This is great. Yeah. Jane and I will talk later.
Fantastic. All right. So being Mr. Laurence, you had a very special relationship with Beth. Can you talk about Mr. Laurence and Beth and what made it so special?
Wow. In a nutshell, I'll cut it very short, but there was a lot to relate to personally in the relationship with Beth. And a lot of folks know of Marianne's and my having a son with severe disabilities, and having lost him in 2005, it just wasn't too difficult to get to the emotional relationship of Mr. Laurence and Beth. And it's something I felt like it was time to respectfully work with my emotional and my relationship with my son, and to work with the loss. And that may sound rude and not a thing you would, but it's an actor's tool, and you must use it when if you've had appropriate time to distance yourself. And I felt it was time to work with that part of my life experience and my life.
Thank you. In the film on Christmas morning, you sent the Christmas feast over for breakfast. when the girls brought their breakfast to the family down the road. Can you describe that? And were you able to see the food and taste the food?
You know, I do think, yeah, I think I was there on that day. You know, like I said, there were periods where I wasn't needed. But that display of the Christmas breakfast was way above and beyond the call of duty. It was pretty. I mean, everybody was knocked out by what the folks came up with as far as you know, display. But it was always you know, hands off, and I mean, there were tidbits offset that we could partake of, and but it was a lovely setting, you know.
It certainly was. Yes, for sure. And when we speak with Christine, we'll be talking about that as well. What was your favorite part of Little Women? Did you have a favorite?
Like I said previously, my greatest part of Little Women was coming the few days that I had to do the work, but to really observe these younger talents. I mean, Saoirse Ronan and Timothy Chalamet and Beth and the other actors. It was remarkable to watch them. They worked so well together. I think there was a special benefit that Saoirse and Timothy had worked together before. They're just like brothers and sisters, and so easy. Everybody was so easy with each other, and so ready to work. And I don't know, I dare say that Greta, there's a history of how Greta brought the cast together, primarily the young folks, and got them to relax with each other. And whatever she did to get them to that point was pretty remarkable. She's really well prepared director, as, sorry to say, the women directors, they just have to be that much more on it, because it's something we got to work on.
Wow, thank you, Chris. And you have a film coming out tomorrow. Can you talk about Irresistible, who directed it, and what your role in the film is?
Yeah, if we remember Jon Stewart and his show a handful of years ago on TV, what was it? Daily Show. And in the show, you know, it's like, if we remember going back, there was a period where folks said, I don't watch the news, I watch Jon Stewart in the Daily Show, because he can break down a story and clarify and simplify, as he does in this film. It's a light political comedy about what do you call them? Deal makers from the DNC and the RNC butting heads in a small town in Wisconsin. And my character is Jack Hastings, a retired military man running a dairy farm with his daughter. And there's a town hall meeting where a military base nearby is closed down. So you lose the population of 7,000 soldiers, and the town's in real trouble and concern. And it's a comment on these folks from DC coming in and making a lot of promises, and then sort of leaving until the next election. And John's made a very great point of things must change in the election process. And so Steve Carell is the DNC rep, and Rose Byrne is from the RNC, and it goes off from there, you know.
Oh, it sounds great. Can't wait to see it. And it's on demand? Is that tomorrow?
Yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. We have a question from our chat room. I'd like to ask it of you. It's about Little Women. How did you approach respecting the strong feminist theme and how your role was so foundationally supportive of it?
Well, I don't know. It's under question. I understand the question, but it's not difficult. The very first film director I worked with was Nancy Savoca. I believe maybe the third person I worked with on a film was Nancy Kelly. And that was in the late 80s, early 90s. Nancy Kelly's film just got restored. It's a beautiful gem period piece. But I don't know, to answer your question,
That was a feminist theme piece.
it was a strongly feminist theme piece, and they're making a point of it right now, but we did that in late 89. But I don't have a difficulty working with women. I enjoy working with women, and to add to that, I must say the guy who gave me my first feature role in a film, John Sayles, and we've done 5 films together over the years. He made a point, even way back then, 50% men, 50% women in his crew. And added benefit was that if you were in a certain position in crew working on his film, you could go up one step on the rung of the ladder. So he set a great example for me. He set a great example for a lot of actors and maybe men in particular of proper behavior on set. And so I was taught by the best, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this wonderful time with you. We appreciate you. We appreciate Mr. Laurence, and we appreciate Marianne. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We're going to turn over to Madeline Hoff. Madeline grew up in Duxbury. She was a member of the Academy Award-winning design team for the Little Women film. Welcome, Madeline. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me with you guys.
We're thrilled to have you all the way from Los Angeles, California.
Still morning here. I got my coffee next to me.
That is fantastic. Well, let's find out. How did you go from being a student who spent afternoons at the Duxbury Student Union to becoming a member of the Academy Award-winning costume design team for the film Little Women?
Oh, man, it's crazy. If I told myself when I was at the student union that this would happen, I don't think I would believe it. I heard about the film being made the day I found out about the opportunity. I didn't know it was coming. Little Women's my favorite story of all time. I had to kind of downplay my fandom when I was working on set and with Jacqueline. I eventually told her how much I was obsessed with the story, but yeah, I think the transition came from reading the book, being very curious, being obsessed with the 90s film. My mom read it to me. My brother is also in film. He's also in this chat. My family's texting me. They're saying how cool Chris is and that he has an amazing voice. So thank you, Chris, for being here. Yeah, no, it's really incredible.
Can you talk about the scope of your role as a team member? What are some of the things that you did?
So it was mainly supporting everyone above me. So starting with Jacqueline, and then any of the set dressers, kind of just setting everything up for them. I worked with the background mostly. There's about 600 background characters. So kind of organizing them. There's a lot of herding sheep. They were very sweet. I worked with all different ages, from 4-year-olds to 80-year-olds. It was a really amazing experience. Just a lot of organization and kind of a lot of running around as a production assistant.
Could you talk a little bit about Jacqueline Duran?
She was an idol for me as a child. She's one of the sweetest women I've ever met. Also just incredibly talented. She has such an eye for color, which is something I really appreciate. She's very soft-spoken, incredibly organized. She had two women below her that were assisting her with everything, and they were incredibly kind. Sinead and Alexis, very organized as well. But she really cared about the actors. She did so much research in the beginning, but then ultimately when it came to deciding on who wore what, it was really up to the actors. I don't know what Chris was experienced with Jacqueline, but yeah, she really cared about what the actors felt when they were wearing the costumes and kind of catered to that. But she would have a lot of options lined up for them, and was really passionate about doing custom pieces. She's from London, so she did a lot of fittings in London with her own ateliers, which was really cool to see. Yeah.
That's so cool. Good for you. So let's talk about your appreciation for the costumes. In this book, it breaks down the costumes for the main characters, and they each have their own look. So Meg is described as romantic and maternal, Jo, spirited and unconventional, Beth, feminine and romantic, Amy, elegant and refined, Laurie, singular and unorthodox, and Marmee, bold and bohemian. Can you talk a little bit about the costumes and how that happened?
So Jacqueline, I think, really took each character seriously. Each character kind of had their own color palette that she built for them, their own fabric. So Amy was like very soft pastels. I mean, she has a dramatic maturity level. I think you really see it with that all black outfit that she wears during the ball. But when she's a child, everything's very sweet, very frilly, which was really cute. At Jo, her costumes were one of my favorite. She had a lot of accessories, a lot of dark blues, a lot of reds. And she actually did a lot of swapping with her costumes with Laurie. So they wanted to be as unisex as they could for the time period. So a lot of Laurie's vests she would actually wear, and he would wear her vest. They did a lot of swapping of jewelry. He wore a necklace that she would wear as a ring, which I thought was really cool. How she did a lot of like sneaking things in, which I thought was really smart. She really cared about details that you wouldn't necessarily notice, which I thought was really cool. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, you know, when I came to get my measurements and try on different clothing with Jacqueline, you know, in just passing time, it was amazing to hear of the old, what do you call it? What do you call them? Warehouses, wardrobe warehouses,
yeah,
across this country and in the UK. And I would come home after that. Well, maybe Marion joined me one or two times, but I was knocked out because nothing takes me out of the scene more if I'm working or if I watch a film where it looks like the costumes have just come off the rack. These clothes have been so worn, and they were so, it gave me the best feeling. And then when I looked at the girls, I so appreciated what I can only call all this mismatching of the clothing. It was so bohemian.
It was perfectly disheveled, I think, for each character.
Disheveled and so spot on. It would you can't imagine how much that helps an actor. It sounds absurd, but it's huge.
No, it's really important so you can get into character. I mean, we even had one person brought on just to make the pieces disheveled. So we would make custom pieces, and then there was this one guy that would play like techno music in this small room, and he was like scraping all the clothes and adding dirt to it and adding dye just to make each one had that disheveled look. So it's really cool who they would like specifically bring on just to do this one specific job for costumes, which I thought that was really cool. He was called a textile dyer, and yeah, he was really awesome.
We love these backstories. This is the best part, the behind the scenes with Little Women, for sure. Wow. Did you have
Andrea, Chris should tell you that when he put his costume on the first time, I was there, and I saw Greta burst into tears when she saw him and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe how perfectly you fit this period."
Wow.
So.
Wow. Oh, Chris, we forgot to ask you.
Yes.
What did Marianne think of your beard?
I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated the I like a beard, but I didn't like the mutton chop. So it was like, where's your face? Your face has disappeared.
No, usually if I have time, I'll grow my own, but I was coming direct my first day of work, the previous night, I had just come off another film, and they were both Sony films, I believe. So this was an applied, previously the measurements were taken with the makeup people and hair and makeup people. And so it was an applied beard, and that was kind of convenient, you know. Yeah, it worked out okay.
Wow. Okay, thank you. That's great. So Madeline, getting back to you, I'd like to, if you could, this week you were interviewed in the Duxbury Clipper, which is very exciting, but maybe not everyone has read it. So would you please talk a little bit about in 4th grade, who you dressed up for as?
I dressed up as Louisa May Alcott for my 4th grade wax museum. I mentioned that I was really big fan as a child. My teacher actually told me I shouldn't be her because I was having a hard time doing all the research on her, but I think I was more determined to wear the hoop skirt. I was really excited about it. And my mom has a photograph of me dressed up as her.
You'll have to post it and share it with us.
No, I need to find it. It's somewhere in my house. It must be in like a box somewhere, but I was a really big fan as a child. It was crazy.
Well, we're very proud of you, and we love that you're from Duxbury and love that you are out in the world and part of the Little Women team. It's really cool. It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Madeline.
No problem. Thank you.
We're going to have a conversation next with Christine Tobin, food stylist, who's joining us from Boston. Christine, there you are. Hello and welcome. We're so happy to see you. And we'll be doing the food demonstration at the end of the program. But right now we're going to start with a conversation. Can you tell us a little bit about what is a food stylist and how did you become the food stylist for the film Little Women?
A food stylist, the definition is the basic definition is someone who makes food look good for camera. So when you see anything from Mary Claire chicken pot pie commercial to a Dunkin' Donuts ad to your cookbooks and now into motion picture, it's the brain behind that is to design food and work with a photographer or camera person so it sort of comes alive through their lens. And then Little Women is my 16th film. I'm primarily here in New England. And I was called by Dave Gulick, who's the prop master who I've worked with this was my 4th film with him. And he called maybe a couple of months to a month before we started shooting. So anyone who works in film knows as soon as you get a call, you sort of just immediately get obsessed with the job that you're being hired to do. So the research started right away. But in addition to, having my work relationships with Dave Gulick and the prop department, I'm the only food stylist in the New England Local 481 union. And when I was on Ghostbusters in previous years, I had the really great opportunity to work on a personal level with Amy Pascal, who is the one of the executive producers of Little Women. So having that relationship with her sort of helped in many, many ways for the work I did on this piece.
Wow, that's fantastic. So in the book, there is an entire chapter on making dishes like the marches. I'm just going to hold up this beautiful page, the ice cream. Can you walk us through some of the dishes and how did you research the dishes for the marches?
One of the first things I did after meeting with, speaking with Dave about Little Women, sort of an overview of the 27 food scenes that were to be shot for Little Women. I went directly to the Alcott House in Concord and accidentally met Jan Turnquist, who's the director there, and had an accidental, no joke, 4-hour meeting with her. And I sat there with scrap paper and just took down as much information from her, and having had that special time. And from that research of really digging deep into the Alcotts themselves, before getting into the mystical marches and Laurence's, that it sort of helped me direct myself and focus on the foods that they would have had there, what they would have been prepared, what were their favorite things, like strawberries and apple desserts and all these things, and then start looking at old cookbooks and historic recipes. But the problem is when you're in this time-sensitive warp, especially with food, there's no real time to recipe test. So you're just sort of like looking at things, and the saving grace is they had rising agents back then. So, you know, slumps can easily turn into cakes, and crisps can, you know, so there's some things that just turn to more modern cookbooks from London bakers. Like I have, you know, they're all still marked with all my, you know, my tags, but, you know, just sort of piece together, you know, a menu of such as a caterer would, you know, for like the greatest wedding, like ever to be hired for. So and yet, you know, presented and work closely with the director and anyone that knows, or well, here we are having had the experience to work with such an amazing director as Greta is, but also mirroring her was Amy Pascal, who, knowing her, and I know Chris and Mary, like you guys have hung out, you know, you've been to Amy Pascal's house and you know how she entertains, and she wants big, bold, beautiful spreads. So having that inside experience helped, you know, imagine more not luxurious, but just that food of love sentiment, and have the ability with her backing me to just kind of go big. And it was a lot of fun.
Well, you went big.
Yeah, it was fun to go big, yeah. Because some productions, you know, my little craft in the greater, you know, crew, you know, I might be the last person that gets the budget, you know, or really gets, you know, where this wasn't the case. The food was just as much a part of the storytelling and character development and family, you know, showing family dynamics and showing social demographics between the Laurences and the Marches and all these things that just, even if it wasn't obvious or as obvious as a big bowl of peppermint ice cream, there were little things that you can find that just sort of help describe who these characters, and who then the real people, meaning the Alcotts themselves, what represents them, and giving them homage because they were a really great family of New England. So
yeah,
I felt a responsibility to that too, in the little wacky world of food.
And it was important to you to use native plants in your food. Is that so? Can you talk about that?
So I'm located in Roslindale, Mass. It was part of Boston proper. And so I hug sort of Brookline where there's Allendale Farm. And I would go there and even collect their compost. I would collect all the things that were bruised, anything that looked as what would look back then. They didn't have shiny apples on the countertops. They had like half rotten, pears from their own pear trees and things like that. So, I studied what was available then and source it here. And luckily the way the timeline of the film was here in Massachusetts aligned with what was coming from the crops here locally. So to get heirloom tomatoes for Meg's wedding scene and utilize what was harvested here locally that they would have had in their own gardens or within their community was definitely something that I wanted to pay special attention to. And as far as the plants, for decorative elements, because the marches didn't have money. So the idea of, well, what if they took old ribbons or, wildflowers from their backyard, eucalyptus, even dandelions, the maple leaves from the fall foliage, acorns, to sort of adorn their baked goods because they were sharing their love and wanted to give that special touch without having the luxuriousness of the Laurences where, the Christmas scene, you'll see, the fir tree, the roses, which I borrowed from Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette, like her film, if you haven't seen it yet and you're a big food on film person, it's like the best movie ever. So just sort of adorning things was what would have been then available in Mr. Lawrence's greenhouse to beautify and sort of lift up, some of his things. So, but even, Chris probably wouldn't even, but just to give you something with Chris. So there was a scene, it was your Christmas breakfast with Timothy and John, who was playing Meg's then soon-to-be husband, right? And you had ham and quiche. And the most brilliant part, which I didn't even come up with, was one of the prop masters, Morgan, was I had all these gallons of fresh pressed apple cider. And the way the light hits it, because you were so sad, right? It was so depressed. It was like a sad morning that the murkiness of the cider just sort of mirrored how it was just like murky. Anyways, that's a little inside little nerd thing. But anyways.
We love that. We love that stories. And we want to make the connection to our community garden club of Duxbury. They are all about native plants, authenticity, and that was the thread, in addition to community and joy, for underwriting this program, was because of the authenticity of your food styling in the film and being to period and embedding all of the natural elements. And we'll be talking about that more during the food demonstration. Let's see. We are going, did you read Little Women when you were a child, and or have you read it to your children who are home with you right now? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that?
I read it as my daughter's turning 10 next month. So around her age, around 9 years old, we, every school, especially in New England back then, so this is the 80s, Little Women was part of our English program, in literature. So, with then, I didn't read it to her during the filming just because my hair is on fire, but once we wrapped, she and I spent, those next few months reading together. And she's such a good kid and she loves to read, but the language is really difficult for a young person. So she's like, Mom, there's so many words. But it really brought together my experience having read the book when I was her age, having the incredible privilege to work on it in this capacity, and then to share it with her and have her see, the film and her little moment of assisting me picking leaves from the trees of Forest Hill Cemetery and Jamaica Pond for that final cake scene. No, it's not that. It's the one with all the leaves on top.
Oh, okay.
But it just made her, the whole regard, from beginning to end, from with the story of Little Women, like it's been this really wonderful experience to share, not just with just as with each other,
Yeah, for sure. Oh, Christine, this is wonderful. And we're excited because we'll be having the food demonstration at the end of our conversation and our Q&As. We're looking forward to that. Thank you for this conversation. We're going to now invite Carolyn Ravenscroft to join us. Carolyn is from the Duxbury Rural Historical Society, and Carolyn is going to be sharing with us all kinds of important information and backstories that probably most of us didn't know about. Welcome, Carolyn. Thank you so much for joining us, being part of this program.
Problem. Being here.
Fantastic. So can you share with us about Abby May Alcott and what school she attended and why we should all know this?
Well, first let me say that there are so many connections between Duxbury and Concord. I could expand on them for at least an hour, but we'll keep it concise here. So we've long known that Abba May, who became Abba May Alcott, went to school here. We have a great reminiscence written in the 1890s of an old sea captain that came back to the town, and he had gone to Reverend Aline's school. So Reverend Aline was our Unitarian minister from right after the American Revolution until 1833. And he lived at the house that's now 1043 Tremont Street, so big white house on the right side when you're going north, just shy of Alden Street. And Reverend Aline, like so many ministers of the time, supplemented his income by running a school out of his home. And when I mentioned that reminiscence from Captain Barrel, who came back to town in the 80s as an elderly man, wrote about, really lovingly about how great Reverend Aline's school was. And he mentioned that the mother of Louisa May Alcott also was there while he was there. So we understood that she was here, but in what capacity, when, what year, how is it possible she was at a Unitarian minister's boys' school in Duxbury? That really came to light about 5 or 6 years ago. A number of Abba May's letters were published. And in that, about 4 letters are from her stay in Duxbury. So we know she was here in 1819 when she was about 18 years old, and she wasn't necessarily a student at Reverend Aline's school. It sounds more like she was a student of his daughter, Abba Aline, and Abba tutored Abba May for a year here. And what she studied, which maybe strike us as not very common, but actually when we look at many of the girls here in Duxbury, including our Bradford sisters of the Bradford House, it is typical. So she studied, I have a list here, French and Latin, botany, geography, astronomy, chemistry, philosophy, and theology. A very well-rounded education for a woman who would someday marry a minister or a lawyer or a congressman or academic. So after her year here, she went back to her family, and she was engaged to someone before Bronson Alcott, or kind of quasi-engaged, and he passed, and then, the rest is history.
Wow, that's amazing. Who knew? I didn't know that. That's just so neat to learn. Can you tell us some more about when Marmee went down to Washington. Can you share that story? Yeah, okay, great.
So one of the most interesting connections between Little Women and the history here in Duxbury is that, and I use Marmee's example countless times. Every time I give a tour of the Bradford house, the name Marmee comes up. Because when we think in the movie, or obviously the book, Marmee gets a letter from Mr. Alcott, or Mr. March, and he's sick in a hospital. Now, that experience happened thousands of times in households all across the North. You're a mother, you're a wife, you're a sister, and you've received word that your loved one is languishing in a hospital, or sadly, maybe already has passed, and you want to reclaim that body, bring him home. So these women en masse go to Washington, D.C., just as Marmee did. Now, in the movie, Marmee has Mr. Brooke as a chaperone for her, and she also has the luxury of having older children who can pretty much care for themselves. In many, many instances, these women are pregnant, they have toddlers, they're destitute, they have no money, and they have no chaperone. So they're really going outside their comfort zone. They're traveling maybe for the first time in their lives, solo on a train, and probably the first time in their lives leaving their state. And when they get down to Washington, D.C., you have to imagine what they're confronted with. This is almost like a Marshall city. It is overrun. Everything that can be a hospital is a hospital. So the rotunda of the Capitol building, the patent office, George Washington University, girls' schools. Louisa May Alcott was herself a nurse in the Hurly-Burly house, that she called it, but it was the Union Square Hospital. So these women disembark from a train, scared, confused, poor, sometimes, and with children. And now how do they even find their loved ones? Where's their directory? Where are they going to stay? The rents are exorbitant in DC at this time. So the United States Sanitary Commission had a home for wives and mothers on North Capitol Street, right near the train station, and women could go there. They could get a meal, they could find the directory to the hospitals, they could find help with retrieving their loved ones. And the matron of that home took care of all these women was Charlotte Bradford of Duxbury, of our Bradford Museum. Her sister joined her for a time, for 6 months, when things got really hectic down there. Thousands of women came through this home, and Charlotte's diaries and her sister's notes give absolutely heart-wrenching stories of these women like Marmee looking for their loved ones. So we can imagine if you were to write a novel not called March, but Marmee, Charlotte Bradford probably would be a character in that novel.
Wow, amazing. It's so great that you know all this, and you have all these diaries and letters. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it's a great boon.
Did you read Little Women when you were a child, or as an adult person? And what does the book mean to you?
So obviously I'm a historian, and I think my love of history definitely came from reading historical fiction and period things like Little Women, Little House on the Prairie books, Katie Woodlawn. I mean, I was an avid reader, and from the time I could read, things like Little Women, including Little Women, made a huge impact on me. So the fact that I'm a 19th century historian now is a dream come true. Started back with books like Little Women.
Love it, love it. Well, Carolyn, you have so much intellectual capital. We are grateful to you. We love the Historical Society. The Senior Center has a great partnership with you. Thank you so much for being part of our program this afternoon. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, and so now we have Jackie Davis who's joining us. Jackie is here. Hi, Jackie. Jackie is here from Providence, Rhode Island, and she played the role of Susan Collins in the film. Before I introduce Jackie, I have to give a big shout out of thank you to Judy Vose, who made the connection to us at beyond the 11th hour. So thank you, Jackie, for jumping right in. I'm going to hold up the book. Here's Jackie in the book. She's at the wedding. And Jackie, can you tell us, you have a really neat connection. You went to high school at the Concord Carlisle High School, and then fast forward and you played Susan Collins in the film Little Women. Can you share your journey with us? How did that happen?
The relation to Concord was pretty tremendous. It was like going back in time to go back and shoot our scenes. Some were shot, I think the scene that you actually see me with Laura Dern, that was shot in Harvard, but the scene at the wedding was in Concord. So it was nostalgic to go back, and it was really nice. Judy Vose, who you are giving credit to. Hi, Judy. She's my other mom. I went to high school with her daughter, Casey, and we were dubbed twins by one of our teachers, our Spanish teacher, because she would transpose our names all the time. She would call me Casey and Casey Jackie, and one of us that apparently were twins, and it had stuck for the past 30 some odd years. So that is the connection, the double connection to Concord, as far as the film is concerned.
That's great. How did you become part of the film? How did you become Susan Collins in the film?
Well, funny story. I thank you for the wonderful movie star introduction, but I'm just a hustling actor out here booking gigs. So I became Susan Collins post-production. I was cast in two capacities. One as a featured extra, meaning one of the people that you see in the film that you can get a clear look at who they are. So featured. And also as a day player, which means you get a line or you get a scene and you get a little bump in your salary. Once we started to shoot the scene, and Greta, who's just incredible and amazing and supportive, she determined that my character should have a name. So I was cast as, I didn't tell you this, I was cast as Marmie's friend. My name was Marmie's friend in the call sheet. Once we started to shoot, and Laura and I had, we had a really good rapport. We did a few takes of the shoot. Greta was determined that my character should have a name. And so for the sake of it, when we were shooting the scene, I think my name was Margaret as we were shooting the scene, so that we had a familiarity, and Marmie could call me Margaret and I could call her Marmie. And as we were filming, Greta said, but before we get into post, you guys need to find someone from history who would possibly be Marmie's friend through Louisa May, because we know Louisa May Alcott was an abolitionist, and she was very much a feminist and part of the women's right movement. And I think she was the first woman in Concord registered to vote, if I'm not mistaken. And Susan Collins was part of that circle of people who enabled a woman to register to vote. So I think a lot of who I became was post-film. How I got the role, a casting agent in Boston that I've worked with often literally sent me a text and said, hey, I have a client looking to book talent, featured / day player, send me a candidate. And I took a selfie with my phone and I sent, hey, this is a crappy selfie, but I'm on my way to a gig. And before I got to the gig, he called me back and he said, hey, they like you. Are you available to go get fitted for a costume? Sure, I'll go. I rent a car, I go. I had no idea what it was for. I go, and it's once I got to fitting that I knew what I booked. Mm-hmm. So any research into Susan Collins, everything I've learned about her is post post the project.
That is amazing.
But that's an actor's life, you know? So that was like almost 2 years and 10 gigs ago. But it's one for the books. It's definitely one for the books.
Yeah, for sure. Did you read Little Women? I mean, you didn't read it to prepare for the role.
I read it as a child. I came to this country from Jamaica when I was 9, and it was one of the first books that I read. I remember I had Robinson Crusoe, the entire list of books for that time period of the 70s that we were all reading. And every time I think about the book, when I figured what I booked, I was going to read it again, and I decided not to, because Marmie's friend, and also as an extra and a day player, you don't know if you're going to make the final cut. So you want to be a good actor. You show up, you stay out of the way, you say what they want you to say, you stand where they want you to stand, you go home, you book your next gig. But I just remember every time I think about the novel, I would get incredibly sad. And I couldn't remember what made me so sad until I actually saw the film. And I remember, I think I connected with the youngest character who died. And that's somewhere in my subliminal. Because I'm watching the film and I was like, oh, this is great, this is lovely. Oh, that. There's that. But yeah, I have not, yes, I haven't read it since I was a child.
Did you have a favorite part of this film?
You know, as a day player actor, the fun that I got out of it was seeing my friends. The production company used quite a bit of local talent. So it was really nice to see my friends also working, my friends and colleagues working. Seeing the film, I love the relationship with Saoirse and Tim. Am I saying his? Yeah.
Yes.
Timothy. That was fun to watch, and also the very feminist slant that Greta took with the editing of the film, and even when Laura and I were filming, Greta was very, very clear that she needed that scene to make the movie. And still being a day player, I honestly didn't tell a lot of people that I did this film. Mm-hmm. NDA, first of all. And second of all, you just never know where you're going to end up. It gave me hope when I heard her say she had to have the scene in the film, but I didn't really, book any future gigs on that.
Wow, who knew? We're learning so much about the backstory life of an actress or an actor and what it takes and how you went up there not knowing that you were going up for Little Women. Tell us, Jackie, what are you working on right now? You live in Providence. What are you working on right now as an actor?
Actually, I'm working as a producer right now. I'm working on a project called From a Distance, and it is a web series that takes place during COVID, and how do we reach out, and how do we connect, and how do we touch each other from a distance. Yes. And it covers the lives of 5 sets of characters, and we're in post-production now.
That's really cool. How can we learn more about it? Could you put some information in the chat room for us? How do we know about that? How do we see it or learn about it?
We are so early in the process, but I could tell you what our IG, our hashtag is Bad Series. And there you go.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Jackie, thank you so much for jumping in and making this happen. So great to meet you. We loved you being in the film. It's so exciting to see you in the book as well.
Yes, that's a surprise to me as well. I'll be having some conversations as well, Chris.
You're in good company. We're so happy that the Senior Center can let you know that you are in a big Sony film book. Thank you, Jackie. Really great to get to know you. All right, we're going to turn our program now. We're going to pivot. We're going to continue our Q&A. If you have a question, please put it in the chat room. We welcome your questions. We're going to move into our food demonstration with Christine Tobin at this time. And all of our guests will answer your questions via the chat room as we continue with our program.
So move, oh.
Here you are, Christine. We're going to be in your kitchen.
So this is my, oh yeah, so this is my space where I cook. A lot of, I'm very lucky to have a space here in my personal space to cook for various films that come in. So the setup is pretty sweet. So Little Women in particular, I was lucky enough to have 3 assistants with me. One, Brianna Borelli, was from Clear Flour Bakery in Brookline. She was my baking assistant. My good friend, Carolyn White, was my kitchen assistant. And
This is real time.
you're gonna come with me as I let my son in. There he is. Okay. So we use this space, and my sunroom, I have the additional freezer space and counter space and refrigerator. So we had this like ongoing move.
This is her in her kitchen. She's gonna do like a demonstration.
Of
Some
all the
she's really
bakers
playing
that were
shit. I'm sure he wants to tell him what the fuck.
So we were able to have almost like a like an assembly line here in this space. So I would then shuttle everything to set. So we were a fine oil machine. So again, with 27 food scenes, there were a lot of prep involved.
Wow, 27 food scenes. And today we're going to be doing this recipe. Is that right, Christine? The sugar and cinnamon apple bread.
And I can tell you about that. I can't believe you're seeing my son right there.
Okay, that's all right. Let's keep going. That's okay.
But what's funny about movie making is you're hired to be prepared and on board for every single scene that you're needed. But then you go see the film and you're just like, wait, with everyone else, and half the work, you don't really see the work that you did or the food. So sometimes that could be disappointing, but then there's some really magical moments that we strive to have. So this apple cinnamon bread was from the scene which you only saw her exit her house, Meg, where she was, and in the book, she's making jam with Marmee. And so it was this really hot day in Harvard, Mass. I think it was Harvard. It's a tiny little historical home that we were shooting in, and I was set outside with all this homemade jam, and I had this bread to represent something that Meg would have baked, but because Meg was an amateur baker, it had to not be pretty, it had to look realistic to her skill capacity, but taste delicious in case they were to cut into it, because you don't know what's going to happen until the director says, go. So, having 12 of these cakes waiting just ended up in people's backpacks. It definitely was a favorite of Greta's, so I made sure that from time to time throughout our production, like I would give her assistant a little care package because she liked it so much. And once the film was released, I sent a care package to her home for her to share over the holidays with her family. So there's not much to this cake, but it's representative of what was available during that time. There is a recipe through the Alcott House that that was a apple slump cake. But my job is to also make food photogenic. So having a slump cake wouldn't have really gotten very far on the set dressing end of things. So this has a lot of character once you see the finished product, and it tastes really good. So I do use a mixer. So I'm just gonna put you down like this. Is this okay? I think
this is great. You're doing great. And I just want to share with all of our friends that this bread was available at the Foodsmith. and it is delicious. We had a taste this morning. So if you're not making it at home, you can buy some at the Foodsmith, and also the recipe is included in this book, and it's also in our newsletter on the Duxbury Senior Center website.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled that the Foodsmith, as someone who visits Duxbury, is an awesome bakery with the best egg sandwiches, as is then Far is making the very best ice cream. So anyone that is in Duxbury, you're really lucky, or you should visit both of those businesses. So, so I'm just gonna go for it.
Yep, you go for it.
So I have a stand mixer, but you can also use a hand mixer of 1 stick of room temperature butter. So I'm gonna pardon the little bit of the noise. And then I have 1 cup of brown sugar with a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar and a 1/2 tablespoon of cinnamon. So I'm gonna add that. And we're gonna zap this until smooth. And I always scrape around the bowl as I go. And I don't know about you, but I always then have random flying. That's my trick to keep things clean.
Fantastic. Well, it's so fun to know that this was a crew favorite and Greta's favorite. It's just really neat.
Everyone gains 5 pounds when I'm around on set.
Tell us about the bowls that are in the book, you know, these beautiful earthenware bowls. Were those purchased at an antique store in Concord, or were
yes,
they...
well, in all films, you know, you have your set dressing and your production design, and then set dressing and property department. So, you know, the bowls, anything that an actor would touch is considered a prop, but if they're not sourced by the property department, they're sourced and stored in the warehouse of set dressing. So those bowls everything about this film had to be completely specific to that time. You would not see anything. You know, the only allegiances in creativity was just like me taking a more modern recipe, or in a technique in sewing for wardrobe. Like everything had to be just time accurate. So all those bowls and stuff were either coming in from local, like secondhand shops or antique shops, or found on sites like eBay or Etsy.
Cool.
So I'm not gonna keep going with this, because then, well, a little bit. But as I was mentioning about having the gift of leaveners, it really made my job a lot easier as far as researching and coming up with these baked goods, because there were it was a baked good heavy production. So I just added 2 eggs, and this is 1 tablespoon of vanilla. And we're gonna give this a zap. I used to pretend I would do this when I was a kid. I was pretend all the time. This is hilarious. I've never done this on camera before.
You're doing great. I'm going to hold a picture of you in the book. There you are with your assistants doing your style.
Yeah, so that's Morgan and that's Grace. Those are 2 assistant. Morgan was the assistant prop master, and Grace is actually Dave Gulick's daughter, and she was one of the assistants. So those weren't actually food assistants, but we all just jump in, and they were super helpful. So this is mixed up. And then in this bowl, I have a 1.5 cups of flour, and I like to use King Arthur flour, and a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. And this is 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And we're gonna mix this up. And in case you're wondering what this thing is, it's just to keep me organized.
All right. Great.
So in this bowl, which I'll show you the consistency because so it's just sort of has some movement to it. I'm gonna alternate between the flour and 1/2 cup of whole milk. And so that will like make a quick batter. And then we'll add our apples. And with this recipe, the apples I think are the best baking apples are the Granny Smith apple. So, you know, you're gonna peel this and finally chop it. But in essence, it would have been what apples would have been available on the Elcott, i.e. March property. So they had a plethora of apple trees and pear trees. So visiting the farmers markets, and specifically Allendale's, that's local to me, you know, just making sure that these ingredients were always around, even if they were set out as set dressing, just to sort of visually get the idea of what would have been pulled from their own backyard. So a little tidbit there. So I'm gonna put this on low. I don't know if you can tell, but this KitchenAid is on its last leg. If I had to go pretty fast.
If you're going to buy another one, what color are you going to get?
Oh, I don't know. This was a wedding gift. So that is this is a long, my relationship with this KitchenAid has been long, so.
So when you're on set, did you have your own kitchen? And did you have to bring your own tools? How does that work?
Most of the time, I prep everything as far as I can out of my own space, and arrive as a caterer would essentially, but definitely for big, heavy, you know, food scenes, you know, I'll have refrigeration, I'll have a tent, but it's the most unluxurious food prep scenario anyone could imagine. And in this case, there was a stage that we had the replications of the Elcott house, which was like walking into a doll house every day. So on set, I did have a small kitchen where I had four refrigerators and running water, which is kind of a luxury too. So I was able to do some work out of there, but just for control issues and just to make sure that everything was just done efficiently. You know, everything is done here. So that's it.
Good to know, yeah. We're learning. It's fun to hear the backstories of how this all happens.
Yeah, and you know, it is a luxury, but you'll be surprised at what you make do with, you know, even on films, because you then have other teams like electric or plumbing. The people then come together to just build you out some temporary space. So it always works out.
We have a question for you. Christine, in addition to making the food, do you and your crew also stage the way the food looks on the set as a stylist?
Oh, yeah. That's it. I mean, this is just...
Is that the main part of being a food stylist?
Food stylist is the main part, is you're making the food look good for camera.
Yeah.
But in this medium of motion picture work, it goes much deeper into that, because you're hired to then dissect and research and work closely with, you know, the actors, the director, sometimes the script, the writers to sort of bring their ideas to life. And then your busy bee you put different hats on, then your busy bee like catering, cook person, chef, and then you show up and then you set, up the food. And then once they say go, you're then replenishing each bite after bite after bite, then after a take, or in the case of the ice cream, that was real ice cream from Puritan Ice Cream Company here in Roslindale, which is a local company. They've been in business 100 years. Yep. So that ice cream was pre-scooped and set on dry ice in a cooler. And then as that scene was going, having to go in and sort of take out what was really melting to replace it. So it was, babysitting. There's fresh cream, all the food that's there is real food. So there's a lot of moving parts in it, but ultimately it's like taking a catering gig and like blowing it up into, confetti. So it's a lot. I enjoy it for sure. So I want to focus here.
Okay.
So I can show you, because I would hate to miss a spot, as simple as this cake is. So here we have the batter. I'm just going to take it out now. So see how like super easy to put together, as is most fruit cakes. And what's nice about this cake too is because the apple is chopped up so finely, it just sort of like makes this cake super moist. So here I have one apple that turned a little brown, but I had pre-diced it before our Zoom. So this is one apple, so about a cup of apple. So we're going to fold that in. So then I can show you, I don't know if you can see the consistency of the batter is a bit on the thicker side. But in the wedding scene with, I keep going back to Meg's wedding scene because there were so many beautiful things that were prepared that we ultimately didn't really see, except in the background. But, you had the farm fresh heirloom tomatoes and corn. We had beautiful cakes and an apple cake that was a Dory Greenspan recipe, using ferns, like local, like from that set that was at Harvard, Mass, like going and picking from the land offset and bringing it, into our little space and pinning things with clothespins. So there's a lot of attention to New England in this piece. So we have the batter. You have your loaf pan where you just spray, simple pan, and then line it with parchment and then spray it again so it doesn't stick. And let's put you down. There we go. See, now this is food styling. I'm doing it to camera, right? So this is basically all it means. So it's a pretty thick batter. And most of the foods that that are prepared, they're babysat and taken care of, also with the intention that they can go home with somebody at the end of, or they're being eaten during the food scene, but also I'm not big into waste. So if it finds a home, I'm really happy. So,
sure. Well, who wouldn't want that?
Absolutely. So I'm just gonna do a quick, little smoothing of the top. But the best part about this cake is just how it bakes and crinkles, and it looks totally imperfect. Like not the most attractive cake, but sometimes the ugliest things are the most beautiful. So the idea that Meg was trying so hard in the scene in the book and in the scene in the movie, although to be the best wife to her husband and comparing herself to Marmee, who was like this expert baker and jam maker, that I just love this recipe to sort of help help make that connection. So this was 2 tablespoons of sugar and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, just ground cinnamon. And then this is the fun part that the kids like to do. And it's pretty generous of a sprinkle. You see all the like there's like cinnamon dust flying everywhere right now. So
it's fantastic.
Just a nice dusting. And I actually been baking this morning, and I will bring you over here for you to see the final. Thank you for your patience here. So, so this just right out of the pan. So this is what it looks like. So you have this really, like, it's still granulated, which makes this really nice surface. And then pops right out of the pan.
Oh, Christine, it's so beautiful.
Well, we have to go to the Foodsmith.
For sure. Yes. Oh, how lovely.
So this is, so they're pretty thick, you know, they're just like a nice loaf. And here. And super moist.
Wow.
Yum.
Oh my God.
What makes it so moist again? You mentioned it already.
Just it's just from the chopping the apples so finely. First, the Granny Smith are probably a more preferred baking apple, but you know they would have used any apple. And you know there's you have Macintosh apples, you have Granny Smith apples, Honeycrisp apples, Macoun apples. So the varieties of apples haven't changed from the time of the Alcotts to now, so so to be able to take the studies from them and sort of reimagine them a bit was really one of the very best parts about doing what I do on this film in particular, because I don't know, it brings me a lot of joy. So,
well, thank you for bringing us so much joy, and thank you for these delicious treats. All the recipes are featured in this wonderful book. It's fantastic. I too have marked my pages. That was wonderful. This concludes our Little Women program for today. Before we say our goodbyes, I have 2 programs that I want to share with you. Another community program is our Booked for Lunch. We have Laura Munson joining us via Zoom, presenting her best-selling novel called Willis Grove. Laura has a lot of connections to Duxbury. She lives in Montana. This book was a USA Today best-selling summer read. It's a great story. She runs a writing retreat center out of Montana. We hope you will join us. It's in July. You can go to our website to register for this free program. It will be super fun. And then it is hydrangea time. I just cut these like 2 minutes before our program started. It's our 4th annual Duxbury Hydrangea Festival. It will be on Zoom. This year it's free. It is on Wednesday, July 22nd from 1 to 2:30. You can register for this free program on our website, duxburyseniorcenter.org. Click on register for a program. With our Hydrangea Festival, we have a lot of community partners, including our friends of the Community Garden Club of Duxbury. They will be making 150 arrangements. We will be announcing raffles and giveaways in the Zoom program. So please sign up and join us for our hydrangea program. Also go to our website to read our July newsletter. It is posted and you can register for lots of programs. We have an In the Garden program with Mary Kelly, lots of history programs, fun trivia program, and more. Thank you all for joining us. This has been amazing. Little Women Booked for Lunch, truly an intergenerational community program. Thanks to all of you for joining us on Zoom. COVID can't keep us away. We love being together. Stay safe, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you next week for more Senior Center programming. Oh, tomorrow, it's the Duxbury Women Series with Laura Smith and Sue Bradford, the Executive Director of the Duxbury Student Union, 10 a.m. here on Zoom. Please go to our website and sign up for it. It's our closer of the Duxbury Women Series until September. We hope to see you again tomorrow morning for the Duxbury Women Series. Thanks again, and this was really fun, so special. Everybody take care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Much.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. That was beautiful.
So much fun.
Fantastic program. Thank you.
Everybody go get ice cream.
Everyone, please go get ice cream. It's such great ice cream.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The local business.
Come and visit us, Christine.
I'll be there. Oh yeah. I gotta get some ice cream.
And this is a really fun book to lean into this summer and make some recipes and revisit the film. It was great. It's fun to read the book and then watch the film again. You'll see it all unfolds.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Very nice. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. So great.
We don't want to leave.
Judy, you can get, is Judy still on?
I don't know. I can't tell. It's
Yes.
Judy, get the book.
I'm here.
Hi, Judy. Thanks for bringing Jackie.
I was
Judy.
so excited.
Judy,
I love her so much. Whew. You know, Brooke,
yes.
Thank you so much, because I am such a computer nerd that I was afraid I couldn't even get it turned on my computer, and I was having a nervous breakdown.
When you said, when I sent you the link, you were so
and I said to myself, but I've already checked in for the link. I already. Yeah, and so I thought, oh no, I need to do something else. Where do I get the book?
Yes. I'll get the book from Jane. Do you have the? I'll email you her.
Okay, send me her info, and
I will.
Okay, because I want to get one for Jackie too, but maybe I can get Chris to autograph one for her.
Good idea.
Oh, thank you all so much.
All right, bye, Judy. Thank you.
Okay.